Hey y'all, I hope you're well. Welcome to another episode of Healthcare Boulevard. This is a podcast where we shine more light on healthcare, and our goal here is to provide more options to people looking to choose healthcare as a career path, regardless of their background. My name is Sena Kakpomo, and I am your host and creator here. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. Remember, you can tune in wherever you get your podcast. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Hello, good evening, and if you're anything like me, it is nighttime where you are. But welcome back to Healthcare Boulevard. I am back on the mic. It's been a little while. It's just been a series of interviews over here for a little bit, which I'm very happy about because I try to focus on the interviews for you all, but I do want to sort of revert the wheels a little bit and complement some of those interviews. Today, I'm going to complement exactly the last episode and talk about MRI Tech. For starters, I did recently create an IG page for Healthcare Boulevard. So if you look up Healthcare Boulevard on IG, you will find me there. I have all of 0 followers right now because it is a very new page. If you are a fan of the podcast, please go ahead and follow me there. I'll try to keep that page, just a fun little nips of things. I've also created a LinkedIn page for those who are Healthcare Boulevard fans. That is all the little news on the Healthcare Boulevard side of the world. I hope you and yours are well. But let's dive into this. Let's do it, yeah? So MRI Tech. Let's start with what is an MRI technology. So I was happily corrected last time off the mic, but I still want to mention it because I appreciated her for correcting me. As I made the mistake of calling, because it's MRI Tech, right? A tech can be technologist or technician, and I had originally addressed her as MRI technician on one of the couple takes we had to take for her introduction because we were having some technical issues, and her being as nice of a person as she is, took the opportunity to correct me before we, went on for another take. So it is MRI technologist. So the MRI, what is an MRI? MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. So what that is essentially is just like an X-ray. It's another form, another modality of imaging that allows healthcare professionals to take a look inside what's happening in your body in a way that we won't be able to look at with just our naked eyes. And much like every screening test or screening imaging out there are certain things that is great at and there are certain things that is not necessarily required for, right? So some of the things that MRI does great, not that this is required for the profession, but it's some information that it won't hurt to know, is it sort of gives you information that an X-ray wouldn't give you, right? So let's say you're an orthopedic, for example, which MRI will be used a lot in that field. Is somebody comes in with the pain of some sort, after the conservative method of action in treating that person, your next thing when you're like, okay, let me really see what's happening there, right? That I'm not able to see with my physical exam and history is X-ray. It's easy, it's cheap, it gets the work done, it gives you a look at the bone spaces and all of that. But if that all seems clean and the person is still complaining of pain after conservative treatment, you gotta see what there is, because again, the X-ray is only gonna give you so much. It won't be able to show you much of the soft tissues, and that's where the MRI comes in place, and it's very good at giving you soft images and looks at soft tissue. My bad. But anyway, that is way deeper than I should have gone into what an MRI is used for. So now that you know what an MRI is, it's, the word magnetic is in there. And if you hear and listen to my interview with Melissa from last time, you remember her mentioning that, she has to do, there's a procedure that she has to do before she gets the patient into the machine, because it's magnetic. Anything with metal in the patient or on the patient will be problematic, and will, can be fatal. And so she has to do her due diligence, and all the MRI technologists, my bad, again, there I go again. MRI technologists have to do their due diligence, so that's part of their job. So I'll give you a dry definition of what an MRI technologist does. So they situate patients who were prescribed an MRI for various reasons, right? So a doctor prescribed an MRI to try to look into the patient for whatever the patient may be presenting with. And the prescription goes to the MRI technologist, who then performs the exam. Just like a X-ray tech who will do the X-ray, but we'll focus on MRI tech today. So that's enough said on what an MRI is and what the MRI technologists do. I think it's pretty straightforward. Let's dive into how to become an MRI technologist. And so this actually gave me a bit of a hard time compared to the other research I've done. And part of that is that there are different ways that to get to that title of MRI technologist, as she alluded it in our last episode where I interviewed Melissa. So I'll sort of highlight as much of the information as I can. But I will strongly, as I usually do for these things, suggest you, number one, take a look at the links that I will share in this episode. Number two, make sure you do a deeper dive into how to become an MRI technologist in your state, and based on the position of education you're coming from. Are you coming from high school? Do you already have an associate degree? Do you already have a bachelor's degree? Or you halfway into either one of those degrees? Do you have a hospital ready to sponsor you? So it's just make sure you do the research and take it from where you are. And if you have any question or need any guidance into that, regardless of what state you're in, I'm willing to lend you some hand in that. But I would again recommend you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn. That's a great way to connect, who already hold that title in your state, and sort of pick their brain. As you can see, just listening to folks who've been in Healthcare Boulevard, people who in professions love to, at least many of us do, share some light on how to hold the title they now hold. So the gold standard to become an MRI tech is to hold a certification from the American Registry or Radiologic Technologist, and that's ARRT. But there are other ways to get into this title. But the minimum requirement is the minimum options is to either complete accredited certificate program from a community college or a hospital, and that may take a few months to a year, and it only requires a high school diploma or GED. Most MRI techs, however, much like Melissa, have an associate degree or a bachelor's, either BA or BS. And of course, the supervisory roles are available based on experience. Now let's dive in deeper. That's just a general. So the gold standard way is to hold a certification from ARRT, right? But there are other ways to get there. That's not the requirement, right? It's not the only way to go. And like I was saying, this give me a bit of a hard time because it's not like boom, 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 1 + 2 is 3, right? Now, let's get into a little bit of a nitty-gritty steps of how to become an MRI Tech. So, you start with high school diploma or GED. Again, I'm going to put a parenthesis here, and I may mention this in nearly all of these episodes that I do, and forgive me if it becomes repetitive. It's just because I know not everybody listens to every episode, and on top of that, even if you do, I know things get forgotten or become forgotten. Things get forgotten. Anyways, I really want, if you are still in high school, I really want you to take the best advantage you can of whatever supplemental education or supplemental certification or licenses your high school may offer. And of course, that starts with knowing this information when you were freshman or sophomore and preparing for that. And that may be a lot to ask for it. When you start high school again, 14, 13-year-old. But again, if you happen to think about that when in your early teen years, you are ahead of the curve, okay? All right, back to it. Off my soapbox. So you start with a high school diploma, right? And then number 2 has a couple steps. You can complete an accredited MRI Tech education program, and that can be 1 to 4 years, okay? Things to look for when you're selecting a program that for MRI Tech, right? An MRI Tech program, make sure they are accredited by one of these 3 associations or organizations, as we say. Number 1 is a Joint Review Committee on Education and Radiologic Technology. That's a mouthful. And that's JRCERT, okay? Number 2, make sure the program is either, again, accredited by JRCERT, JRCERT, I guess you could say, Junior Cert. I'm gonna stop. Or number 2, accredited by American Registry of Magnetic Resonance Imaging Technologies, AMRIT. Or lastly, by Commission on Accreditation of Allied Health Education Program, CAAHEP. So make sure once you are looking at an MRI Technologies programs to attend and enroll, make sure they're accredited by one of those organizations. 2, complete the clinical work experience. Okay, so this is optional, and the reason it's optional is because if you are pursuing an ARMRIT certification, you may substitute that for education. Again, do deeper research into that if you are interested in this profession. Step 3 is to obtain your certification. The timeline varies depending on what organization you are getting the certification from. And here's the thing with this: the certification, unlike most healthcare professionals and CNA, LPN, PA, trust me, MD, and so forth, the certification is not required. I'm sorry, the licensor is not required, but a lot of employers ask for it or prefer it, or more drawn to employees who have it, or better yet, applicants who have the licensor. So, it's not required, but get it. And so I found that to be interesting because this might be the first healthcare professional title that the licensure is not required. And again, I'm pretty sure it sounds like, I should say, I'm not in that field, so I'm not going to make assumptions or projections, but it sounds like once upon a time that option was really an option wherein you get it just to have it on your resume and look shinier, and then over time more employers started preferring that, and so slowly it became still not required but strongly recommended. An example, if you're in the nursing realm, you can think of an RN, for example. I know an associate degree RN is still equally capable as a BSN, bachelor degree in nursing, for an RN, but a lot of employers prefer bachelor's degree, especially in hospital settings, and I've had people in my close circle who did an associate degree and then ended up doing the bachelor's degree. But the thing is, you already have the RN. The bachelor's degree is not required, but it's definitely give you full attention from employers once you have it, let's put it that way, and take away your limitation. Okay, so that's about it for how to become an MRI. Okay, licensure. So there are some states where license is required, and those states include New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oregon, Tennessee, and West Virginia. Every other state is not required, but again, strongly encouraged to get it. So let's sum that up before I move on. We talk about what an MRI Tech is, and the steps to how to become an MRI Tech. Remember, make sure when you're looking for programs that they're accredited by the three organizations that I talk about, and that is the JRCERT, the AMRIT, or the CAAHEP. What I'm going to do is, for sure, this part I'm going to put in my description so that you don't have to try to remember this if you're interested. And once you're in the program and you finish the program, clinical work may be required, but if you are getting the accreditation from AMRIT, you may not need the clinical work. You can substitute for education, but again, that depends. And then of course the licensure, which is not necessarily required but strongly encouraged to obtain. And the timeline for all of that varies depending on which route you're going, whether by a hospital, a community college, or otherwise. Now, MRI salary, okay, and outlook. So there was an article that Melissa actually shared with me. Thank you, Melissa, for that. I appreciate it. From MTS, and I'll share that article. They put the salary at 73,000 about BLS, and when it comes to salary, I always go to the BLS as one of my options at the very least, and they put the salary at 63,000 a year, about 30,000 per hour. And I talked about an RN here earlier, so I'm gonna go ahead and compare that briefly. On BLS.gov, RN salary is $75,000 and $36 an hour. So you can make that comparison. Again, that's another profession where you can get to with an associate degree. It's definitely the hotshot profession when it comes to healthcare professionals. But so I it's in that realm, so I wanted to compare that. I hope that gave you sort of an idea. And it has similar growth, because it's the growth is 9% just as RN. So again, gives you an idea. So last thing I want to talk about here is MRI Tech. So we mentioned on the interview last time, and I keep referring to that because that really is I will strongly recommend you listen to the last episode. That gave you a lot of information, because Melissa was great giving us that information, especially from her perspective, who is right on the field. But anyhow, she mentioned MRI Tech 1, MRI Tech 2, and MRI Tech 3 as like the scale of MRI Tech, or I guess hierarchy. Hierarchy might be a good way to put it. And so I wanted to touch a little bit on that. From my research, from what I saw, it's very much what she mentioned is that these titles, MRI Tech 2, 3, are not necessarily, they are not rigid definition of what an MRI Tech 1, MRI Tech 2, or MRI Tech 3 is, right? So it really depends. The most factual thing I can say about it is that it depends on your experience. So clearly, when you are, a few months in, a year in, you are an MRI Tech 1. You are a year in. Having these very small professions wherein a year, less than a year is a scale for any level of experience, really, right? So a year or less, you're definitely an MRI Tech 1. There have been positions, job postings. Some employers will consider somebody with year 2 MRI Tech 2, versus others will only consider people with 3 years of experience MRI 2. But definitely it seems across the board, year 1 MRI 1, and once you get to like year 4, you're pretty much MRI 3 across the board. So is that like, it's really that year 2 versus year 3, or you still MRI 2 or MRI 3? So what that does, what is added in those, I guess job description and responsibility will be some of the differing thing besides just the title, of course. So you won't catch an employer putting supervisory positions and training responsibilities for an MRI Tech 1. How can you ask somebody who just is in the first year of being an MRI Tech to be training somebody else? They need to focus on getting as much experience as they can themselves. So that's, just like a clear-cut type of thing. And so it really depends on the experience. Some articles that I saw, just, some broad advice, I would say, is to really pay attention to the job description. So if the description is they give you like 8 bullet points, and they're like, and other responsibilities as assigned. So it's a good idea to sort of ask the employer while you're on interview what that means, and sort of get that a little clear cut, because the article suggests that it may just be the employer's way of, down the line giving you a lot more responsibility without any increase in pay. And their argument is, well, your initial job description had put everything, as assigned. So just general, and that can probably be applied to any profession. And as a good example, again, is that Melissa was, that I interviewed last last episode anyway, she's MRI Tech 2. Right, and this is her. She's been an MRI Tech for 2 years, so that sort of gives you, as I was saying, a gist of what the differentiating factors are. But I think that's more than enough to be said about that, and that is more than enough for this episode. Again, MRI Tech, I highly recommend this profession. I highly recommend any profession, healthcare professional in the healthcare field. But if this is something you're interested in, I was very intrigued and happy to expose this or shine some light on this profession, because it's something that I myself really is not in the forefront of my head, and in my original list of things to cover. And I know that list keeps growing because I keep learning about new professions, and I keep remembering new profession and add to that list. Another reason why I didn't really share that list explicitly with you. I don't think I did. But anywho, it's one of those things that you don't think about. And the reason I say that, besides the fact that it's not something that wasn't on my own mind forefront, is I work with healthcare professionals of different background and different with different degrees and certification all day long. And since I've my interview with Melissa, I've sort of talked to them like, oh, have you heard about MRI Tech? Was that in your forefront when you were, deciding to become an LPN or CNA or MA? And most of them were like, I haven't. So, it's just, I guess, one of those professions that are hidden gems. So, if you are somewhere in your life where you are wondering what to do, how to get into the healthcare profession, I think this is another one that is a great addition to my series of, introductory positions and titles and professions into the field of healthcare. But I'm going to end it here and say thank you and buenas noches. Adios. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you. Please subscribe, follow, like, comment, and share. And stay blessed. Bye.